This is CGTN, China Global Television Network.
Burkina Faso denies claims of a coup after soldiers staged a mutiny in Ouagadougou. At least 16 people killed in a nightclub fire in Cameroon. And Arab nations pledge to defend the UAE in the wake of Houthi terror attacks. Welcome to Africa Live on CGTN with me, Beatrice Marshall, in Nairobi. Also coming up on the program. In sports, Tunisia prepares for titanic battle with Nigeria at the Africa Cup of Nations. Political tensions in Burkina Faso continue to escalate. Now, protesters on Sunday looted and burnt the ruling party's headquarters. Hours earlier, gunfire rang through the barracks in Ouagadougou, as well as the northern town of Kaya, as soldiers opened fire for more than an hour. The government confirmed the gunfire but denied reports circulating on social media that the military had removed President Roch Kabore from power. Earlier this month, authorities arrested a dozen soldiers for allegedly trying to undermine state institutions. Speaking on national television, the country's defense minister said the government was investigating the motive behind Sunday's gunfire.
I strongly deny, first of all, the head of state has not been detained. No institution of the country has been threatened. So as I said, these movements are localized. They are circumscribed and we are following the evolution of those movements.
Well, let's cross over to Lucien Kambo Malba, a journalist who's live for us in Ouagadougou. Lucien, can you give us the updates from Burkina Faso? What's going on there?
The situation is still uncertain in Ouagadougou, the capital of Burkina Faso. In the afternoon, the protesters have been burning tires and putting barricades on National Route 1 near Sangoulé-la-Mizana camp. Defense forces try to remove the barriers. Hundreds of young people have been joining the protesters, claiming to be supporters of the soldiers and asking for the resignation of President Roch Kabore. According to the people on the street, Burkina Faso will not be able to overcome terrorism as long as Roch Kabore is in power. At midday, the shots were still heard in some military camps in Ouagadougou and at the air base. According to Truth Info, a local media, the headquarters of a party on power, MPP, has been attacked by angry protesters who claim that President Roch Kabore should resign. According to soldiers took up position near Sangoulé-la-Mizana camp, turning back passengers who wanted to cross the area. The roads leading to the place of the nation have been barricaded and access is forbidden to civilians. Here is what's going on in Ouagadougou right now.
So, Lucien, the government has asked people to remain calm. Just how widespread is the unrest across Burkina Faso?
Indeed, in the morning, the government called people to remain calm after declaring that at that time they did not know too much about the motivation of the shots. But the voice of the government was not heard as manifestations continued in many streets in the city. But right now, there is a relative calm. But this could be because of a match of Burkina Faso versus Gabon of the African Cup that's going on right now.
All right, Lucien Kambo Malba, a journalist joining us there from Ouagadougou with the latest development from Burkina Faso. While political tensions have existed in Burkina Faso for months now, Ashtatal takes a closer look at the reason behind the continued protest.
For months, protesters have taken to the streets of Burkina Faso. The call of demonstrators has remained the same, for President Roch Christian Kabore to resign. Calls for his resignation come due to what protesters see as a failure to stop the growing militant attacks in the country. Burkina Faso faces a security challenge of intercommunal conflict as well as jihadist attacks, with groups linked to Al-Qaeda and ISIL operating in the country. But President Kabore is facing more than just a civilian-led opposition. Earlier this month, 8 soldiers were arrested for conspiring against the government. Authorities allege the soldiers were looking to destabilize institutions. military camps and personnel have increasingly become a target in jihadist attacks. Kabore has made attempts to quiet calls for his resignation. In December, Kabore reshuffled both his cabinet and several military posts. This included replacing the then military chief and the resignation of his then Prime Minister, Christophe Dabiré. The government has also repeatedly shut down mobile internet services following protests. Despite this, members of the opposition and civil society groups continue to call for more protest. Astatal, CGTN.
Well, let's stay in Burkina Faso for the moment and speak to Alex Vines. He's the director at the Africa program at Chatham House. I understand we'll return to Alex in a moment if we can. But for now, let's look at what's happening in the Sudan, where delegations from the United States and Israel have visited Khartoum as part of renewed international efforts to resolve Sudan's political crisis. Now, this follows recommendations by the United Nations Integrated Transition Assistance Mission in the Sudan, urging political actors in that country to hold talks in order to end the long-running unrest. Naba Mohideen has more from Khartoum.
Sudan's Forces of Freedom and Change, the country's main opposition coalition, has met with officials of the United Nations Integrated Transition Assistance Mission on Sunday. The Alliance for Freedom and Change agreed to take part in UN-sponsored talks to end months of political deadlock. The meeting is expected to deliver the coalition's vision regarding the initiative for dialogue between various Sudanese parties. Political analysts think the UNITAM talks will pave the way for a political roadmap.
After the meetings, other talks will be held between the resistance committees and Freedom and Change forces to unify their vision, and that will be the framework for solutions and the constitutional amendments.
However, the Sudanese Professionals Association, another key civilian group, has rejected the UN offer.
We reject any compromise with the military. This situation is a result of the coup. We won't sit with them at the table.
The political unrest in Sudan is deepening every day, casting a shadow on the security and economic situation. And political analysts argue the fragility in the country needs urgent and effective solutions to restore calm and stability. Naba Mohideen, CGTN, Khartoum, Sudan.
Meanwhile, the Vice President of Sudan's Transitional Council, Lieutenant General Mohamed Hamdan Dagalo, has met with the African Union Commission's chairperson, Musa Faki Mahamat. He received Dagalo at his residence in Addis Ababa. Both men discussed the ongoing political tension in Sudan. The country has witnessed several protests calling for the military to step away from the transition process. Security forces have faced allegations of using deadly force against protesters. Dagalo expressed Sudan's appreciation for the AU's efforts to establish stability in the country. Mahamat, for his part, affirmed the African Union's readiness to help address the political crisis in the country. Well, let's now return to Burkina Faso, where political tensions there continue to escalate, and we continue keeping an eye on this story for you. Let's now get some analysis from Alex Vines, the director at the Africa program at Chatham House. Alex, thank you for joining us on Africa Live. Today's events comes weeks after Burkina Faso arrested a dozen soldiers for what it said were attempts to undermine the government's institutions. Could you give us a brief outlook of what exactly is going on there?
Yeah, it's not completely clear yet what is happening, but it looks as if we've seen a military mutiny today with the military shooting and protesting against conditions. So the military in 5 or 6 bases in Burkina Faso, including in the capital Ouagadougou, have been saying that they want better conditions, better pay, better trained and support for their comrades up on the front fighting various jihadists that are really challenging the Burkina military at the moment. So as you know, both ISIL and also Al-Qaeda linked jihadists are seriously challenging security in the middle and north of Burkina Faso. So Whether this was a coup, I'm not sure it was a coup attempt in itself, although, as you mentioned, there was arrests a few weeks ago of a number of individuals who were maybe plotting a coup attempt. And this is a region where coups are happening. I mean, there's been 3 successful coups in the last decade in West Africa, and several other attempts in the last couple of years. So it's a very, very unstable context to be talking about.
Well, Alex, what do you see as the way out of this current crisis, though? Because, you know, there's been a crisis now for several months.
Well, there is in Burkina particularly a crisis of trust between the military and civilian government. Some of your viewers will remember there was a successful, well, almost a successful coup attempt in 2015. The civilian authorities put that down, but they arrested a lot of the military people who are involved, and a number of them are in prison still. And so the result of that is that there was a purge of intelligence and military. And one of the ways of explaining why security has deteriorated as rapidly as it has in Burkina Faso is because of that purge. And so the military are really struggling in containing the challenge by the jihadist insurgents supported by Al-Qaeda and ISIS. And I think that's one way of looking at it.
All right, Alex Vines there joining us on the line from London on the situation in Burkina Faso. Thank you. Now to Cameroon, where at least 16 people have died and 8 others were injured early on Sunday after a fire engulfed an upmarket nightclub. Authorities say the incident was caused by fireworks usually used in the nightclub. They believe the fireworks sparked a fire on the ceiling, which caused further explosions and panic in the nightclub. Government officials, including the Minister of State Ferdinand Ngongo, visited the site of a deadly nightclub fire in Cameroon's capital, Yaoundé. The Arab League has held an emergency meeting in Cairo on Sunday to discuss a terrorist attack that the United Arab Emirates recently. Houthi rebels in Yemen claimed responsibility for that attack. The Arab nations have condemned the attack and pledged to back the UAE in defending itself. Here is CGTN's Adek Mahroui with the details.
The Arab League has criticized the Yemeni Houthi group-led attack on the United Arab Emirates last Monday. Alarmed by the Houthis' move to target Abu Dhabi's airport, member states say they will stand together against any threat to the security and stability of the United Arab Emirates.
The UAE is grateful to all the Arab countries that stood by the Emirates to condemn and reject that aggression. The UAE strongly rejects the Houthi militias' targeting of civilians, which is a staggering violation of international law and international human rights. This illegal and concerning escalation is another step in the Houthi efforts to spread terrorism and chaos in the region.
During the meeting, the UAE's delegation explained the details of the attack. It said that on January 17, 3 cruise missiles were fired and UAE forces intercepted a ballistic missiles and a number of drones equipped with explosives. 3 people were killed and 6 wounded in the most alarming Houthi attack the UAE has reported on its mainland.
Arab nations are calling the United Nations Security Council to take measures to pressure and contain the Houthi militias, which are not only threatening the stability and security of the Gulf region, but are also threatening the global economy and supply of oil. This region is vital for the trade and exports of oil.
The UAE requested Sunday's emergency Arab League meeting as it sought a strong reaction to the attack by Arab nations. The meeting was held at the diplomatic representatives level. The Cairo meeting resolution announced that Arab states support the UAE in any measure it will take to defend its people and national security. The Arab League has also called upon all nations to designate the Houthis as a terrorist group. Already, Saudi Arabia has stepped up its military campaign in Yemen in what is believed to be a response to the attack on its Gulf ally. Adel Mahroui, CGTN, Cairo.
You're watching Africa Live, still ahead on the program. At least 1.5 million children in East and Southern Africa lack treatment for malnutrition. That's according to UNICEF. To Ghana now, where satellite images released on Saturday show the scale of destruction in Apiate village, Western Ghana, where a truck carrying explosives to a gold mine detonated, killing at least 13 people on Thursday. It was not immediately clear what caused the accident, but police say a motorcycle crashed into the truck, then caught fire. A government statement suggests a roadside power transformer could have also played a role in the explosion. The truck was owned by a Spanish company called Maxam. According to police, it was transporting explosives to the Chirano gold mine run by Toronto-based Kinross Gold Corporation. Well, let's now look at meanwhile, residents in Apiat village were still in shock following a deadly blast on Thursday in the country's southwestern mining region. A motorbike rammed into a truck which eventually burst into flames in the incident. At least 13 people were killed and nearly 200 others were injured. CGTN's Mohamed Abubakar has the details.
Nancy Nyarko says she was preparing porridge at her roadside stall when she heard a loud noise nearby. She recalls seeing a motorbike colliding with a large truck and eventually bursting into flames.
The truck stopped and the driver got out and started waving. The fire continued to blaze. I saw the driver pushing the gate open. And when he got out, he ran to the shop and told the people to get out. I could not hear him from where I was, but I could see him gesturing for people to leave, and so I decided to leave.
The truck is said to be owned by a Spanish company called Maxam. It contained 10 tons of explosives that were to be used to blast rocks at the Chirano gold mine. The blast has claimed the lives of about 13 people, and at least 200 more have been injured.
I climbed on top of a heap of sand to get a better view of the fire, where I spoke with the driver as he tried to call the fire service. He kept saying something was about to happen. We called and called, but by the time they came, the worst had already happened.
It is said that the truck was on fire for 45 minutes before the blast. Authorities, however, have not responded to those claims. Residents are now worried about the enforcement of safety regulations governing the transportation of dangerous materials, as well as the speed and effectiveness of the authorities' response to such emergencies. Mohamed Abubakar, CGTN.
Local authorities in the Democratic Republic of Congo say more than 200 people have been rescued following a boat accident in the northwest of the country. Initial reports indicated that the boat was carrying about 600 people when it sank near the city of Mbandaka last Sunday. Now, some of the locals in Mbandaka city are grieving the loss of their loved ones in that tragic accident.
We are very sad about the death of our sister. She was the last born of our family. She left her home in Mbandaka to look for money to feed her children. We were shocked to learn that she died in the boat called Wera.
Many people, including school children, died in that boat accident. Just look at how this whole family is gathered here to mourn the death of their daughter. She was the last born of the family, but also the breadwinner. She has left her elderly parents on their own.
My daughter had a very special place in my heart. She was very hardworking. She always struggled to ensure that we get food and other necessities. Her death is a big blow to us. I don't have much more to add.
At least 1.5 million children are reportedly lacking life-saving treatment for severe malnutrition in Eastern and Southern Africa. According to the United Nations Children's Fund, UNICEF, over $200 million are needed this year to provide emergency nutritional support to the neediest countries. CGTN's Daniel Arap Moy tells us more.
The Eastern and Southern Africa region currently faces increased food insecurity and rising cases of malnutrition. According to UNICEF, the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic, combined with climate shocks and ongoing conflict, is pushing children and families to the brink.
These 1.5 million children are in just 6 countries in Eastern and Southern Africa. And those countries have faced multiple threats, including drought, prolonged drought, floods, desert locusts, conflict, and of course, on top of that, the impacts of the pandemic.
Consistent shortfalls in funding have hampered UNICEF's humanitarian response.
These 1.5 million children urgently need support in terms of funds for the programs, funds for the supplies, which UNICEF is ready on the ground to help deliver through the governments and through the partners that we have on the ground.
According to UNICEF, families across the region have had to reduce the quality and quantity of the food they eat to survive. The UN Children's Agency is seeking $255 million to scale up its emergency response in Eastern and Southern Africa. For now, the situation in the region remains dire, and it's feared that any disruption to an already stretched humanitarian operation could worsen what is already a long-running nutrition crisis. Daniel Arap Moy, CGTN, Nairobi, Kenya.
Let's now take a look at your sports news. Here's what's ahead. Tunisia prepares for a titanic battle with Nigeria at the Africa Cup of Nations.
How would you create your legend? On the fields, on the tracks, in the arenas of Africa. Were you born to be a player? Could this moment be yours? Sports Scene. Find your game.
The Africa Cup of Nations in Cameroon has resumed today, with Burkina Faso currently taking on Gabon in their round of 16 clash before Tunisia and Nigeria battle it out later on Sunday night. Nigeria, who are Group D winners, are the only team with a 100% record at the tournament so far. Tunisia have had a different route to the knockout, just sneaking through as one of the 4 best third-placed teams. The Carthage Eagles are aware of Nigeria's threat and form in the competition so far, but are confident of turning up for tonight's game.
We trust in our players. We trust them despite the bad conditions that all of you know very well. All of our players are determined to win. We know the value of the Nigerian team. We know that they were the best team in the group stage, but at the same time, Tunisia still has its reputation, ambitions and goals.
Samuel Chebole and Joyce Chepkemoi are the new Kenyan cross-country champions after beating loaded fields in the self-styled City of Champions Eldoret. The 2022 Athletics Kenya National Cross-Country Championships were a dress rehearsal for the memorial Agnes Tirop World Cross-Country Tour to be held in the same city on the 12th of February. CGTN's Mohamed Abubakar has more.
Samuel Chebole, a former World Cross Junior bronze medalist, was the toast of the day when Kenya held its national cross-country championship. On his senior debut, Chebole trumped the field in the 10-kilometer senior men's race to win the signature event of the day at a meet that attracted hundreds of runners.
The competition is good. I am happy that I have emerged victorious in my first try at the senior race. So it is really good, and I am happy.
Kennedy Kiprop took second place with Vincent Kiprotich rounding off the podium. In the corresponding senior women's race, Joyce Chepkemois stunned a star-studded field including two-time Olympic champion Faith Chepngetich and two-time world under 23,000 meters steeplechase champion Silifin Chespol for the victory.
I thank God for winning. I wasn't expecting victory, and I thank God for giving me the strength until I finished first.
Faith Cherono and Sandra Chebet settled for silver and bronze. Mingling with the thousands of fans who thronged the Lobo Village course in Eldoret were retired Kenyan distance running icons and top athletics officials.
Honestly, this is an honor for God granting us such an opportunity to be able to come over here and be able to take part in the national championships of the 2022. And I really also want to thank my team for working, tirelessly and also, showing the effort, and self-confidence.
The organization has been very well, and this is the international standard we are expecting as we prepare for the continental cross country, which is the world tour that will be held on the 12th. So we are happy. This is a stage now, so that if there are any changes that we need to make, then we can do it now. When the other internationals come here, we are able to stage a better event that we have had today.
Kenya is now ready to host the best international cross-country runners on the 12th of February when the same venue hosts the memorial Agnes Tirop cross-country tour meeting. The event has been named after the women's 10-kilometer world record holder who was brutally murdered last October. Mohamed Abubakar, CGTN.
Francis Sebastian Loeb won the season-opening Monte Carlo Rally on Sunday to become the oldest driver to win a round of the World Championship at 47 years of age. The